Two NBA male basketball stars are joining the WNBA. This happened yesterday, and it shocked America. What exactly is going on? Also, Trump has achieved a major milestone. This is something he hasn't accomplished in the 6 years he's been in power. His right-hand men at the Department of Justice have finally become his reliable team. So what was the whole process behind that? And furthermore, the United States Department of Defense has released information on what they call UFOs, the fifth round of information. The sightings of UFOs appearing everywhere are truly leaving people a bit stunned. All right, welcome to listening and watching Good Morning America, brought to you by Fang Wei. Hello to our YouTube audience, and hello to our listeners on Sound of Hope, Silicon Valley, FM 961. Okay, before we start the show, I'd like to give you a preview. At 4:30 this afternoon, Fang Wei and Xintian will host a special program to teach everyone how to sing the American National Anthem. Okay, I'll say it again. The American National Anthem has excellent lyrics and music, but it's also very difficult to sing. After doing some research, I found that very few people actually learn how to sing it. I only heard from one vocal teacher, a teacher named Sheng Yu, who said she can sing it. I haven't seen anyone else, though I might have missed someone. But in any case, at 4:30 this afternoon, Fang Wei and Xin Tian will be on this live stream to teach you all how to sing the American National Anthem. After watching this program, I think you'll probably have learned 70% of it. If you review it once more later, you'll likely have it down. You'll become one of those very rare people among the Chinese community. Also, including the background of the American National Anthem, its story, its meaning, and the meaning of the lyrics. So you can see it all in one show. Just subscribe to Fang Wei's channel. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you don't know what subscribing is, leave a comment. I don't know what you mean by subscribe, so I can see how many viewers don't know. That way you'll get notifications on time, okay? All right, 4:30 this afternoon. Looking forward to seeing y'all. Okay, let's get into the main topics and talk about today's news. First, let's quickly go over the recent developments in the Middle East, or rather, the lack of progress in the Middle East, okay? First of all, the agreement President Trump mentioned for Wednesday or Thursday hasn't appeared, and today is already Saturday. Meanwhile, two other things happened. On Thursday and Friday, the United Arab Emirates said a vessel belonging to the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, that's their own, the UAE's ship, was attacked by Iranian missiles while sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. Then today, Saturday, a ship sailing through the Strait of Hormuz was also hit by what's called an unidentified projectile. We don't know whose ship it is yet, nor what the projectile was, though it's likely either a cruise missile or a drone. This incident occurred 18 miles east of Kasab, Oman, 18 nautical miles. In other words, it's still in this passage on the Omani side, some distance from Iran, but Iran isn't holding back, attacking from across the strait. So this week, a total of 3 ships have been attacked, even during negotiations between the United States and Iran, resulting in 1 crew member's death and 20 injuries. And since the conflict between the United States and Iran began in late February, 15 vessels have been attacked by missiles and drones in the Strait of Hormuz. And also, the spokesperson for Iran's Revolutionary Guard, General Mohibi, claimed on Saturday that the Strait of Hormuz will only reopen if the United States accepts Iran's conditions. So, can you see it? Iran is really getting more and more arrogant here. And also, this Hormuz, he also said the Strait of Hormuz isn't just an economic corridor, but a symbol of Iran's geopolitical power. And he said they're currently in negotiations with Oman, and these talks are completely independent. What he meant by completely independent is that it has nothing to do with the United States. Okay, so here's a brief commentary from Fang Wei. First, I think negotiations between the United States and Iran are completely impossible. No matter how much goodwill President Trump shows, it won't work because that's the kind of opponent they are. Second, Trump has cards in his hand, but he hasn't played them. Trump said before that if you hit a tanker, I'll blow up a bridge, but he hasn't done it yet. Actually, the card in Trump's hand is destroying Iran's industrial system. This is something that could be done in a day or two. So only by making Iran lose its industrial production capacity will it weaken Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, including threatening Israel and the Gulf states. And the one best suited for this is a helper right at hand, right there, which is the Israeli Air Force. They could do this immediately. So only by destroying Iran's industrial production capacity can its military production be eliminated. Then the Gulf can defend itself, and the Strait can it'll gradually become impossible to be blockaded. In short, President Trump is still acting out of his charitable heart. It's true, I'm not just saying nice things about him. It's just that he doesn't want to take things to the extreme. So that's the process. Anyway, we'll keep watching this process to see when things will change. Okay, next, let me tell you about today's main news. 2 NBA male stars announced they're joining the Women's League. What's going on? So what exactly happened? A former American NBA star named Ennis Freedom announced yesterday that he's going to enter the WNBA draft to become a women's basketball player. I'll just call the Women's NBA women's basketball for short, okay? In English, it's called the WNBA, Women's NBA. Then, within a day, another NBA male star named Royce White also announced he's doing the same thing, entering the WNBA draft. Now, Freedom started joining American professional basketball teams in 2011. From then until he stopped in 2018, in those 7 years, he played for 5 different teams. So he's definitely a great player. And Royce White was with the Houston Rockets. As everyone can see, both of them have scruffy beards. Why would they make such an announcement? So the story behind this is very interesting. But behind this fun story, there's a very profound reason. Okay, first let's talk about what's actually going on with American women's basketball. So the WNBA is women's basketball, right? And there's always been this political correctness about respecting transgender rights, treating it as the gold standard, meaning that biological males competing in women's basketball, this is a right that we must protect. Even though so far in the WNBA there hasn't been a transgender man playing yet, but the political correctness is there, firmly established. Well, just think about it. If a male athlete competes on a female team, they're facing a completely unequal competition where physical strength, endurance, and power are more than double that of women. Plus, there's the unbelievable issue of shared locker rooms and bathrooms, which has already happened in many teams across the United States. So how did this whole situation and controversy arise in the WNBA today? We're talking about a WNBA player, a guard for the Indiana Fever. Her name is Cunningham, Sophie Cunningham. She's always been very straightforward, she's not afraid to speak her mind. Then, on July 22nd, an ESPN reporter, that's the sports channel, wrote a feature profile on Cunningham after interviewing her. In the article, he quoted Cunningham saying that athletes should compete based on their biological sex at birth, rather than their gender identity after a transgender transition. Her exact words were, "I want to protect young girls. Whether it's in the locker room or on the court, they shouldn't be forced to compete against biological males." And at the same time, she also denied that she hates transgender people. She said, "I've received a lot of feedback saying that I hate transgender people, but I've never said that." She said, "I'm here to spread love, but there also has to be truth within that love." Well, those are some very well-spoken words. But these words, this specific statement, don't you think it's quite controversial? Who might these words have offended? These words immediately became the focus of American sports and cultural issues, sparking a nationwide debate. Media reports said the remarks spilled over into WNBA arenas, leading to scenes of protest rallies directed at her team. In other words, this culture war has made its way into the WNBA. And the WNBA itself has quite a large number of LGBT players. Of course, there aren't any transgender players yet, but with so many LGBT players, the political atmosphere of the league is quite, shall we say, progressive. Then, the WNBA Players Association issued a statement, and it was released yesterday, saying hate, abuse, and demonization of any group, including transgender people, only serves to fuel fear, division, and harm. So these words were a way of criticizing her without naming names. They didn't mention Cunningham, but everyone could see what they meant. And then, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reeve, wore a shirt that said, "Trans kids belong here," a Trans Kids Belong top, to express her disapproval of Cunningham. So in the game between Minnesota and Indiana, Cunningham was booed by the crowd. So you can see, the state of Minnesota it's already very, very left-wing. Minnesota, it used to be full of German descendants, a very, very American Midwestern state, and now it's turned into this. And then on social media, she was labeled by critics as MAGA Barbie or MAGA grifter. What does grifter mean? It means a swindler, labels like swindler or coward. So it really has become a national event over the past few days. All right, so as a result, this call from the WNBA, or people related to it, to protect the rights of transgender people, this appeal caught the attention of two people and prompted them to act. Because the WNBA doesn't have clear written rules about who exactly can participate, although, to be fair, their collective bargaining agreement does state that only female players can join the WNBA, but it doesn't define what a woman is, and it certainly doesn't explicitly state whether transgender women are excluded or allowed. And an unwritten understanding is that whether you're a woman comes down to self-identification. How do you know you're a woman? Well, you don't need to transition, you don't need to take hormones, you don't need to have surgery. As long as you identify as a woman, you are a woman. And of course, conversely, if you identify as a man, then you're a man. So this is the current trend of political correctness in America. Respecting the individual, taking that respect for the individual to the extreme. So, as a result, what did Enes Kanter Freedom say? He said he released a statement yesterday, saying that after careful consideration, he even posted a video, very well produced. He said, I've studied the current WNBA eligibility requirements, and based on the existing regulatory framework regarding self-identification and inclusion, I officially declare myself eligible for the April 2027 WNBA draft. Oh my God. And then Royce White followed suit, saying, I announce my entry into the 2027 WNBA draft. I identify as someone who sometimes identifies as a transgender woman. What does he mean? He's saying that since whether you're a man or a woman is something you just decide for yourself. So he thinks when I'm playing ball, if I want to play in the WNBA, then I feel like a woman. But after the game, when I'm out having drinks with the guys, then I feel like a man. So you can do that too. Isn't this your political correctness? So I sometimes identify as a transgender woman, and therefore I'm entering the WNBA draft. He said his wig is already on its way. He's already ordered a wig online. So my wig is in the mail. Like it's a joke. He himself is actually a Republican candidate for the Minnesota State Senate. So, of course, these two are just joking around, right? But what's the point? The point is that men can't stand it anymore and are coming out to mock or condemn this whole so-called controversy in the WNBA. Because this controversy is indeed, in my view, it's ridiculously laughable. Whether men can compete in women's sports has actually become a national controversy. This is one of the bizarre phenomena in America today, and it's even supported by a significant number of people. But this so-called significant group is likely a minority, yet they are very loud. Okay, this involves the current spread of what's called woke in America. How should I translate woke? I translate it as revolutionary consciousness. What should the full term be? Racial and gender consciousness. In communist terms, we just call it revolutionary consciousness. Many groups and companies in the United States are accepting transgender participation, either voluntarily or under pressure, claiming it's their natural right. We should be kind and inclusive toward people. So companies like Apple, Microsoft, Costco, and Levi's, the jeans company, as well as Delta, American Eagle, Adidas, and JP Morgan are all big believers in transgender rights. But after Trump took office, he cracked down hard. On his first day, he signed an executive order stating the federal government only recognizes two genders, male and female, and gender is determined at conception and cannot be changed. Federal agencies under Trump must use biological sex, called sex, rather than gender identity. And the federal government must stop promoting so-called gender ideology. Government IDs issued by the federal government, from passports on down, must reflect biological sex as either male or female, period. The so-called X gender marker in between is eliminated. And the military has actually banned it. Transgender individuals are not allowed in the military. While not completely banned for federal employees, recognition and protections for employees with transgender identities have been removed. Driven by President Trump, more and more companies are ending these special protections for transgender issues, like Ford and Harley-Davidson and Lowe's, the home improvement store, and so on. More and more companies are doing this. The whole trend is actually shifting. Of course, President Trump's executive order only applies to the federal workforce, which is about 2 to 3 million people, including the military. If he wants a nationwide ban, Congress must pass a law, including banning men from competing on women's sports teams. Now, let me give my comments on this. I don't know how you all feel about it. Why don't you leave a comment? I want to see what you have to say about this matter. Let me check. Also, we've opened up what's called Super Chat here for everyone. I'm not sure how many people have learned how to use Super Chat yet. Anyway, it seems my audience isn't very familiar with it yet. Oh, I still have to log in. That's a bit of a hassle. Logging in will waste time. All right, no Super Chat today, but you can look into it. Okay, well, let's get back to the topic at hand. So I think this transgender issue is a topic that's tearing American society apart. Have you noticed that this topic didn't exist before? It suddenly became hot in the last 6 years. And this topic of transgenderism, in my view, it's actually destroying American faith and traditional American values. We all know in Christianity, God created man and woman, right? He created Adam and Eve. In China's Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, people are traditionally born male or female. So what does transgenderism mean? It means confusing gender, so there's no clear male or female anymore. Men can become women, women can become men, even without surgery or hormones. But even with surgery and hormones, it's still quite absurd. You know, male and female are distinguished at the microscopic biological level by chromosomes, right? 2 X's or 1 X and 1 Y, right? 2 X's is female, XY is male, and that's in the chromosomes of every single cell. If you take a pill, which cell are you changing? Can you change every cell in your body? It's simply impossible to change. Okay, so since that's the case, now it's just about my identity. If I think I'm someone, then I am. If I say I'm male, I'm male. If female, I'm female. That's gender confusion. To put it bluntly, if this becomes widespread, it destroys faith in God, because God tells you that's not how it works. But our society is doing exactly that. So it's destroying faith in God. So, of course, how did they achieve this? Well, the far left says, hey, we're doing this under the banner of being kind and tolerant to people. So some people say she's a woman, but a woman's heart is trapped in a man's body. So they're in a lot of pain. They're very suppressed. We should be kind and inclusive toward them. Saying a woman's soul or a woman's heart is trapped in a man's body is nonsensical in itself. There's no scientific definition for it, but they just say it anyway. And then they push it further. And then, because of inclusivity, a boy who identifies as a girl can go to the girls' restroom to use the toilet. So many problems arise here. In other words, under the banner of kindness and inclusivity, they push it to the extreme, breaking and overturning all existing order. Okay, so this is the method they use to achieve this. Because these people, if they want to transition as an adult, you can do whatever you want. Don't just say you're a man or a woman. You could say you're a chair or a stool. Who cares? But if you want to flaunt it and push it in front of others, including being naked, marching in the streets, and promoting so-called transgender rights so the whole public sees it, and many of them are children, and parents bringing their kids, is that okay? I don't think that's okay, right? Because you're forcing it on others, but what about their rights? How are you making them feel suppressed, right? It's just forcing others to accept it. And if others don't agree, they attack them. So all of this is, for normal people, a lot of, a form of suppression and an attack on them. But this transgender movement, it exploits people's kindness and tolerance. It uses kindness and tolerance to seize the moral high ground. Don't you want to be kind? Don't you want to be tolerant? If you want to be kind, then tolerate me. Let me do whatever I want to do, including marching naked in the streets. But the problem now is, what about the rights of everyone who isn't transgender, right? When a man enters a women's locker room, what about all the women's, their feelings? This marching naked in the streets, what about the children's feelings? What about the parents' feelings? Shouldn't they be considered? Shouldn't they be protected, right? This is the other side of the story. So in America, regarding this American freedom, there's a classic saying, you have the freedom to swing your fist. In America, no one will stop you. You have the freedom to swing your fist, but you can't hit someone else's nose. Your freedom has limits. As a man, you can decide you're a woman. You can even feel like you're a chair, a stool, or a sofa. That's fine. That's your freedom. But you cannot come and offend my rights or offend my feelings, right? So it's the same. It's the same for both sides. And the population ratio is, well, that's completely different. So should the rights and feelings of the majority be respected? Of course, these are all surface-level controversies. I believe the root is destroying traditional values and beliefs, ruining Western civilization. Because this faith is the most important pillar maintaining and supporting Western civilization. And the way communism attacks Western civilization is through things like same-sex marriage, racial discrimination, green energy, climate change, and so on. It's all the same tactic. Using these methods, the final result, you might think, is someone's brain short-circuiting to come up with this stuff, but it's all a calculated effort to destroy current Western values, to destroy Western faith, and ultimately achieve the goal of destroying Western civilization. So starting from this alienation of values, then seizing the narrative, the ultimate goal is to seize political power. Because if Western faith were firm and values were intact, people wouldn't vote for these so-called far leftists. So only after destroying these things do they have a chance to seize power politically. So coming back to it, this is actually a political movement. Why is this political movement only emerged in the last 6 years and not before? Because I believe the Communist Party in America made a decision 6 years ago. This is a political movement that officially decided to fire the starting gun. So the energy of this political movement really cannot be underestimated, nor can it be indulged. So good people must speak up, or the majority of our society must speak up. We must maintain the rights of normal people and uphold the common sense of our world. That's my deal. Whether you agree or not, you're welcome to leave a comment and express your thoughts, okay? The Senate this morning, actually, the Senate isn't on recess right now. They're working through the weekend. So what did they pass this morning? Well, a very important resolution. Okay, so what's the situation? It's that the U.S. Senate this morning passed a resolution. The acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, has officially become Trump's Attorney General. Why is this matter so important that I need to explain it to you? Because the Attorney General is a major challenge for President Trump. Why is that? This person needs to be capable and fearless, because arresting people, handling cases, and prosecuting involves immense pressure. They also need to be independent, as the U.S. Attorney General has a degree of independence. That's the American tradition. The Attorney General is the president's subordinate, yet doesn't necessarily have to follow the president's orders. Otherwise, where would judicial independence be, right? It's like saying if a prince breaks the law, he's punished like a commoner. It's the same principle. If the president breaks the law, he's also guilty. That's the idea. Of course, the president has his pardon power, but in many ways, the Department of Justice can keep an eye on things. So being capable, fearless, and independent all at once is very difficult. So President Trump has never found a suitable one to this day. We all remember in 2017, when Trump first took office, his first Attorney General was Jeff Sessions. He was a senator from Alabama, the first senator to support Trump. Trump appreciated his support and appointed him Attorney General. But this old gentleman actually recused himself. During the Russia investigation, he stepped aside and let the Deputy Attorney General from the previous administration take charge. As a result, that person became the de facto Attorney General, opening the floodgates and letting the investigation drag on for years. So when he should have protected Trump, he stepped aside, letting them go straight for Trump. This deeply disappointed Trump, and after a year and a half, he was out. Then came Bill Barr, or William Barr. We all remember Barr's biggest issue was during the 2020 election. He basically gave up oversight, leaving people with nowhere to turn. At a time when Trump needed him most, he backed off. He even publicly stated that there were no issues with the election. Do you think Barr was right? Was the election really fine? Then, when Trump finally took office for his second term, he picked someone he thought could get things done. Someone capable, tough, and bold. That person was Matt Gaetz. But Matt Gaetz faced too many ethics investigations and withdrew before a Senate hearing. After he withdrew, Trump turned to the former Attorney General of Florida, Pam Bondi. However, the common criticism from Trump supporters was that Bondi was too soft. She was in office for over a year and didn't do much. And because of the weaponization of justice during the Biden era, American conservatives were very angry. After taking power, Bondi didn't go after him. People felt she wasn't doing her job because no one was prosecuted, meaning there were no consequences for wrongdoing, so they were very unhappy with Bondi. After Bondi served for over a year, Trump asked her to step down. Then, Trump finally played what might be his best card and brought in Todd Blanche. What's special about Todd Blanche? This man is Trump's personal lawyer. Of course, a personal lawyer should be capable, have Trump's absolute trust, and be loyal enough. But, however, if he serves as the Attorney General representing the federal government, what about his independence? That will immediately face the biggest questions. You have to know, whoever Trump appoints as Attorney General, the Senate has to confirm him. What if the Senate doesn't confirm? Well, then the appointment is useless, just like the Matt Gaetz situation we just mentioned. Okay, so this person, he's been through thick and thin with Trump. I'll get into that process later. But while his loyalty is there, he's capable and he's thick-skinned. If his independence is questioned and he can't get the job, what then? This is the biggest dark cloud hanging over this appointment, the uncertainty. So let me give you a very quick introduction to Blanche's background. He was at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, the SDNY, where he served as an assistant U.S. attorney for 9 years. The Southern District of New York is the most famous prosecutor's office in the U.S., or the most powerful. So he was essentially a public prosecutor there, like being a mini attorney general in the Southern District of New York for 9 years. So his credentials are very solid. Later, he left that office and moved into private practice, serving as a partner at several top-tier U.S. law firms. In April 2023, he went out on his own and founded his own law firm. His firm is called the Blanche Law Firm. Later, when Trump faced numerous very severe legal lawsuits during the Biden era, Trump, asked him to serve as his lead criminal defense attorney. He served as the lead counsel, the lead defense attorney, in 3 of the 4 criminal cases Trump faced. One of those was the Manhattan hush money case. And that case went to trial in 2024, and ultimately Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts. Those who watch Fang Wei's show know that the so-called 34 counts were just one offense signed 34 times, which became 34 felony counts.